Hello and welcome to Salem Voices. I'm Lucy Rose, your host, and I am so excited today to introduce you to our special guest from the Salem Academy class of 2009, Abrea Armstrong. Abrea has joined us today from her house in Winston-Salem, and I am delighted to welcome you. Hello there, how are you?
Doing so well, Lucy. The pleasure is mine to truly be here in front of my beloved Salem sisters.
Oh, weren't you kind? Thank you. Especially on a Friday afternoon right before the holidays when we're actually recording this. It is really a pleasure to spend this time with you. But I just want to dive in. Let's just get going, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
It wasn't too long ago that you were a senior at the Academy. And in that time since then, you've made just a giant, obviously, impact and continued your own personal growth. You went to St. John's, I think, for college, and then a master's degree in business management from Wake Forest. Along the way, you've done a million things. So just in 3 minutes or less, if you can, really fast, because we got lots to explore.
Yeah.
Fill us in on your journey to date. Where have you been? Have you gotten here? What are you doing along the way?
Yeah, so what I'm going to really bring up is this idea of writing and the value and the role that writing has played in my life and how essentially Salem began that journey. So I just want to give a quick shout out to Jan Term for those great electives. And there was a creative writing class that I took my my sophomore year during Jan Term. And that's really kind of what first kind of planted that seed of writing. And so when I got to New York and I was a student at St. John's, even though I was a Spanish major, my favorite internship, which I did my spring semester of senior year, was at XXL Magazine, which was an editorial internship. And so that gave me my first introduction into publishing, into editorials. I knew creative writing, but not necessarily editorials. And from there, I've really just figured out how to monetize my passion. And that is essentially why I went to Wake, was because I was a creative. And I was like, okay, I love to write, but I need benefits. I kind of want a 401k, all these things that adulthood and stuff, insurance.
That your parents kind of tell you about as you're growing up, you need to actually monetize your passion, but few people get to do it. So you're very smart. Well done.
Yeah. Yes. And so I really am appreciative for Wake Forest, the School of Business specifically for that. And from after the School of Business, I went to work for a creative agency in Greensboro. My primary account was working on the Walmart account. And so I literally got to travel the country and meet associates and tell their stories and find out what was interesting about them as well as their stores. And that is what was my sort of groundwork behind marketing in general. And so now I am the Senior Marketing Communications Coordinator for the Innovation Quarter. And I also am a business owner. My marketing and branding company is called 91-2 Infinity, 91-2 Infinity.
No, I love that. It's a great creative name. Yeah.
Thank you. And so I'm just so grateful to be able, as I say, to bring my talents home.
Gosh, we're grateful to you for doing that as well. And we're going to dive into all those aspects of your life, which I just can't wait. But when you talk about writing and how that brought it all together for you, we're going to get into your experience at the Academy more as we go along and all this. But how did the Academy prepare you for St. John's and Wake Forest and kind of that writing passion and all of that? What did it do for you there?
So I'd probably say above all else, it ingrains or instills rather a certain mindset of diligence, this idea of actually going to class, actually doing your homework, actually reading the readings, that were due that day. Yeah. It was so interesting. I got to college and I full disclosure, and I say this to all of the young ladies who may not be at the top of their class at Salem. I was not the best student, and it was probably because it's really because I didn't apply myself, quite frankly. And I tell students that, and I feel like it's such an important story. It's because when I got to my freshman year, my fall semester of college, I had a 3.89 GPA because it was, almost a 4.0. And it's because I literally was just going to class and doing my work, like doing all the things that Salem told me to do. And was just like, I was just doing all those things. And apparently other people didn't. And once I realized that, I'm like, oh, you don't have to read? Oh, okay. But don't worry, I graduated with honors. I kept that up. But so I say that Salem definitely teaches you that sense of like diligence, like I mentioned. But along with that Jan term creative writing opportunity, there was Academe, and I'm so grateful for Academe and the outlet that it still provides to this day for both of our literary as well as art creatives within the Academy. And so I started out my freshman year just submitting some of my poetry. And so I'm a poet at heart, even though I've, like I said, I'm monetized into other things. But so freshman year was just submitting a piece of poetry. By the time I was a senior, I was editor-in-chief of the publication, and I actually still keep copies of it on my shelf to this day, just to remember. And so I'm grateful for the Academy for giving me a platform to be able to express myself on.
Wow. We got a lot to explore this afternoon, I think, as we talk about this stuff, because I want to explore your writing. You're also going in a little bit different direction than poetry right now as well. So I can't wait to explore that with you in just a minute. My eyes are going to divert for you just for 1 second, because I need to read something, because I can't remember it all. You did such a great thing with this. So give me 1 second as I read this, but I know you've done, and you did do some really great internships. And that's what I want to remember, all of them, because they're so special and so diverse, which is just kind of cool. You did internships at Lincoln, Jazz at Lincoln Center, which I live right near, which I pass by almost every day. So I know that well, and I love that. At Epic Records and at XXL Magazine. So they were important to you, clearly. How were they important to you? Kind of what were the highlights? How did they prepare you for your work? And do you still stay in touch with any of those folks? And if so, what does that mean to you in your life?
Yeah, so I'd probably say there are two key value propositions that come from internships. Okay. One is certainly the more implicit one, which is the idea of skill set, right? The fact that you learned how to do things. So for example, my internship at Epic Records was in the urban marketing and promotions department. And so that's where I learned about things like Billboard and SoundScan and audience and reach and regions and how different products, and when I say products here, I really mean music and songs, but still, whether even if you're a CPG company, still remains true, how different products are served to different audiences, you know, in different regions, and how these things are measured, and the idea of metrics, right? Yeah. And so all of those skills, like hard skills, you know, were very critical and something that I very much took away from those internship experiences. But even more so, it's relationships. And I'd probably say above all else, like, even if you never get to sit in a meeting, like, just make sure that you have everybody's email and phone number, personal email and phone number, because people will change jobs, and connect with them on LinkedIn before you leave. Because I'll put it like this: you can learn about metrics in a textbook, but you can't learn about people. And you can't learn people in a textbook in that way. So I'm a firm believer that relationships are really what you go to internships to gain. And so those relationships have, they've supported me in such an incredible way, particularly as it relates to my writing. And it's interesting, I was actually just having a call with a publisher right before this, and she was asking me about my publishing journey. And I told her it was primarily based around my network. And one key that I mentioned was during my time at XXL Magazine, which for those who don't know is the #1 hip-hop music hip-hop magazine within music journalism. And so I probably say that back in the day, at least, circulation was probably about, don't let me not get lying. But when I was there in 2013, my favorite editor, his name is Neil Martinez Belkin. Neil has gone on to co-author 2 New York Times bestsellers. And again, during my time there, I loved what he did with my words. And so as I am working on my first novel, Neil, quite frankly, has been the only one who's like really read my pages, certain pages. And it's just because we have that relationship. And even though it's been 7 years since I'm realizing now January, it'll actually be 8 because it was January of 2013. So it'd actually be 8 years now. Even though it's been 8 years since I started that internship, we have always maintained relationships. I watched him grow, he's watched me grow. And again, you need recommendations, you need references, especially as a young professional. All of these soft skills very much matter. So I just want to encourage other young people to make sure that they are leveraging the network and human resources that are around them.
You know, you are just A, you're a breath of fresh air, and B, you're a very wise person, and I really appreciate what you just added. And C, it makes me think of the buzzword you and I hear all the time right now, networking, network.
Uh,
For me, the definition of networking, I'm testing it with you live, okay? So say whatever you want,
sure.
really is building mutually beneficial relationships. It's not just
Mhm.
handing out your business card saying, call me Tuesday, let's go to lunch, which almost never actually happens anyway. But it's really building that relationship in such a way mutually that you do call on each other and you feel really comfortable. And look what that's done for you. And I'm just asking you, is that how kind of you see networking? It's not going to speed dating per se, but it really is building relationships that matter, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, my mother was one of the job casualties of COVID-19, but she's good now. She's good
Okay.
now.
Okay.
She just started her new job at the beginning of the month. But during that journey, I tried to, take that journey with her and be as much of a resource as I could. And what I would tell her as she was going into interviews is like, I'm like, Mom, just remember, it's all about you adding value to the relationship.
Exactly.
And so I'd say with networking, it's more than just building relationships. It's about looking at them and asking yourself, how can I add value to it? How can I serve? It's the idea of service. How can I serve you best? And so even now, when I want people to do favors for me, I'll ask the favor, but then right behind that, I'll come and say, how can I best support you? How can I serve you? Because it's like you want people to do things for you, and you need to reciprocate that in one way or another, or at least show the gesture of reciprocity, even if it's not called upon then and there. That's what I'll say above all else is you just look around and I'd probably say that's what's maybe. I can't say for certain this is what's gotten me certain awards, but I'd probably say like that is one of the key reasons why I've been recognized, particularly I guess I'd say around my 40 under 40 most influential African Americans in the triad. And it's because when I go and I meet people, I try to listen to what their needs are, even if it's not, even if it's a casual greeting, right? It's not even necessarily like I'm going to shake your hand and I'm in a suit and, that sort of thing. Even just casually, just trying to hear what their needs are and understanding what resources already exist within our ecosystem here in Winston-Salem, within our community, especially as it relates to our entrepreneurial ecosystem, given my position within Innovation Quarter, and how do I get those people plugged in with those resources? And that's it. It's just, I just pride myself on being a point of convergence at bare minimum.
I love that. Thank you. I love that. We're going to explore a little bit further that award and some other ones in just a minute and talk about leadership, even beyond the connected part and what that means and your other thoughts about leadership. But for now, why don't you let folks, just so they understand a little bit more about what you do, what is it you actually, what's your job at the Innovation Quarter? And what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? What are you really doing there?
Sure. So pretty much all of the things that you see of the Innovation Quarter. So whether that is our billboards, whether that is our sign on Fish Street, which we'll actually be replacing with a new logo next month. Look out for that. When I say next month, I mean December. So by the time you watch this, it'll probably already be up. So whether it's our business cards, our ads, our social media, I own and run all of our social media channels. So everything you see on our Instagram, our Facebook, our YouTube, our LinkedIn, our Twitter, that all came from a content calendar that I built. I also write copy. Again, I'd say above, if anything, like if I had one card, it would probably say wordsmith at the bottom, because I really love still writing. So even though I do a lot of project management, and especially these days, really helping them think about how to be more intentional about their diversity and inclusion efforts. But I still love to just dig in and write. So I'm not averse to writing the occasional social media post. I actually just wrote 2 stories this month for our website. And each of those stories is about how to bring people together. And when people come together, what beautiful collaborations look like and the impact they can produce. So that is my job, is just to amplify and to let people know about the incredible things going on within the Innovation Quarter, and to draw them there. So whether you are the let's just say the Amazons of the world who want a HQ2, or if you are a 1 or 2 man or woman, or they shop and you just need, 200 square feet of office space. We have that too. So just letting people know that there is something for them. And as we say, just encouraging them to find their spot.
Okay, outstanding. We're going to keep playing back on all of these things throughout our conversation. But for now, I want to introduce one other piece about you to everybody. You clearly have a passion for community service and social justice, which is really important and near and dear, I think, to your heart. Where did the passion come from to do those things? Mm-hmm. And how does it manifest in what you do and how you give back to the world?
The first part of that question is really interesting when you ask, like, where does the passion come from? And I say it's really interesting because I come from a very comfortable 2-parent home. I got a car when I was 16. I played tennis. I went to a private high school. Yeah. I didn't have the sort of, I should say, maybe cumbersome life experience that maybe others have had. And I'm very grateful to my parents for the sacrifices that they made. My mom tells me all the time that sending me to Salem was probably the biggest sacrifice she ever made. And I always tell her that it paid off. I'm like, but it paid off.
Look at you.
And she agrees. Yeah, she agrees. Yeah. And so I think it really comes from the fact that not everyone in my family has had such circumstances. And also that I'm born and raised in the East Ward. And so for those of you who have left Winston-Salem, the East Ward is, right on the other side of 52, kind of from campus. So Winston-Salem State, for example, sits in the East Ward, and it is our most impoverished ward. I think the life expectancy is something crazy like 14 years less. And so I still live in that ward, even though I live in the Kempton. I was born and raised in this ward, though on the Kernersville side. So again, the suburbs. But I have cousins and a grandmother who lived I'm really estimating here, probably about 2 blocks from what we will call the projects. And my Aunt Seal, like during the summers, my parents would send us down to Laurinburg. And during the summers, my Aunt Seal, she ran the center, which was the rec center for all of those kids. And so I spent my summer with those kids. And so I would feel like I was always very aware that my existence and life experiences were not the average. And quite frankly, there is actually numbers and data behind Du Bois's concept of the talented 10th. I think in 2012, the statistic was something like of all 29-year-olds, 25% of them had a college degree or higher. When you segment that by race, the number jumps up to 35% when you're looking at white 29-year-olds. And then it decreases to something like 15% when you're looking at Black 29-year-olds. And I tell my friends, okay, so then if you think about who's dutifully employed within that pool, mm-hmm. that really leaves only about 10% of us who have degrees and are actually using those degrees as such. And so I really have come to understand that number. And I want to bring as many people who want to come, especially our young people. And this is why I really enjoyed my initiatives that reach our both middle schoolers and high schoolers. Just really encouraging our young people, just letting them know that there are other opportunities, whether that's getting them involved with STEM or sending them to a coding academy or robotics, or whatever it may be. Yeah. That's really what it comes from. So that manifests in me being a mentor with nonprofits like Soy Emprendedor, which encourages entrepreneurship with particularly our brown community. Though as a Black woman who speaks Spanish, I'm very much taking it upon myself to, and Carla, the co-founder, is also very behind this sentiment as well, is really using the opportunity to bring both our Black and brown middle school and high school students together to encourage them to be entrepreneurs. And then also I speak at a lot of classes. So even literally earlier today, I just got an email from a student at Winston State. I presented at their class earlier this year, and she wants me to come back and see their presentation. And I swear I was about to cry when I got the email, Lucy. I was like, is this what it feels like to have children? Oh my goodness.
Yes, it is.
Oh my goodness, what is a pro?
Yeah.
So that's why I do what I do, is just so that they can understand that anything is possible.
That word possibilities. It's amazing, isn't it? Thank you. Thank you for those contributions. And you know what? I'm not the only one thanking you. Clearly, you mentioned an award a minute ago. and you've won several awards already. One, you mentioned the, I believe it's 40 under 40 most influential African Americans in the Triad area, right? And then you,
Yes.
in 2019, you also got the Leadership Award by the Chamber of Commerce there in Winston-Salem, I think. So something,
Correct.
you know something about leadership, and you know something clearly about connections and about giving back and all of those important things. But there's reasons that people have identified you as a leader. What would you say are, I don't know, the 2 or 3 most important attributes of a really strong leader?
Yeah, and I'm gonna give a lot of credit to the Wake Forest School of Business here. So just shout out to y'all, because there's 2 in the stairwells. They have like these sort of virtues, if you will, of an ideal business person, and I actually really think they're onto something. And 2 of them that I most value are humility and what we call otherishness.
Otherishness.
And you know,
I
instead
love
of
that word.
otherish, yeah, instead of being selfish,
Okay.
we're otherish.
Okay.
And so it's kind of, you know, with the latter, it's kind of what I was just mentioning with the previous question, is this idea that, you know, when I go into relationships, it's not about me. It's like, how can I best serve you? What are your needs? Let me listen to what the areas of opportunity are, and try to match that with something that exists. So that's the sort of sense of otherishness. It's like, I'm not, and there are certain things that have happened in the community, for example, that I have actually literally done email introductions, or like literally physically brought those 2 people together. And I do it just because I ask myself, how has anyone else not done this? To me, it's just the idea of building bridges for the sake of the community, is like, why are we not all doing that? You know, how are we not all moving through this sense of other? It almost baffles me how people will often do things for self. And don't get me wrong, I think as women, we also very much need to make sure that we take the time to understand our values, because often we will kind of downplay. But I think it's important that we know within ourselves, right, that we got it going on. I was about to curse a little bit, but y'all know what I'm saying. But then when you go out in the world, like, just keeping that in the back of your mind, and, you know, and moving with a sense of generosity. Oh, how kind of you. I appreciate that. How can I serve you? You know, da, da, da. But when it comes down to it, you'll always have that Rolodex, right? You'll always have that network. And quite frankly, here's a little secret. If you build enough good bridges, people will owe you favors.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so, like I said, it's not intentional, but I'm just saying.
I hear you. So that is not your actual goal, but it is what happens as a result of. And that's true in kind of all of life, isn't it? You get back what you put out, right? Every time. And speaking of putting out, you are doing and volunteering. I think you are doing something right now for the institution Salem. We are getting ready to celebrate our 250th anniversary. It's hard for me to even imagine that, actually, but how lucky we are to be around at the time Salem is doing that, and the gifts that it has given to the world, she has given to the world through folks like you.
Right.
Okay. So what's your role in this whole thing? Because I know you're an integral part and kind of a spokesperson for all of this for us. What are you doing and how excited are you? I see you're already smiling. What does this mean to you to be a part of that?
Yeah, I'm so privileged to be a part of this incredible steering committee, which is just full of incredible, illustrious women. When each of them says like their titles, and when I look them up and see what they've done, I'm like, why have I not met, for example, more college women from the college? Like, you know, so I take the title of Princess of Parties very seriously. And so this evening, in fact, I'll be hosting a virtual one. And so to that point, I am one of the co-chairs along with Carla Fisher for the Alumni Events Committee within the 250 anniversary celebration. So Carla and I are right now developing what is looking like a speaker series of sorts. So what we will need from our lovely group of alumni are, I should say, hostesses who have, and we will be putting out a list of, areas. So for example, we'll have one list that is like by a kind of career interest focused. We'll also have a set that is like focused by identity, another by geography, another by class. And so we will be sending out what, kind of each of those pieces are, and if you all are interested, if you see them and you're like, this is me, I do this, please feel free to sign up to be a hostess or to be the featured speaker for that day. So I'm so excited to be able to contribute not just to the 250th, but also to the road to 250, because it will be a journey.
Yes, it is a journey, and that's kind of fun, isn't it? It's been a long journey getting here. So now as we begin kind of creating that road, because it won't start officially till next September in 2021.
Right.
But
correct.
The road, and it opens with a big event, I think, speaking of events. What did you call yourself? The Princess of Party? Is that what you said?
The Princess of Party. It's,
okay, dear. Well, that will be the big party, right? That we're starting with, at least.
Yes.
That's
yes,
not till
that
then,
is correct.
But from now until then is kind of that road there to get people excited and energized over this, right? So good. I'm really glad. Thank you for sharing that and how people might be able to have some input into this as we go forward.
Of course.
It's very exciting. Okay, so you are writing. Now, you started this, so I'm going to go back to your real basic love, which is writing, it sounds like. And you said you started as a poet. You wrote a lot of poems. You probably still write poetry, is my best guess. But I think you're working on a novel right now, if I heard right.
Yeah.
And one of your former mentors is helping you with that because you trust him to work with you on language, which I just also love the fact you like coaches and you like folks to work with you. There's a lot we could play with there. But tell me about it. Tell all us about it so we can buy it when you're ready with it. I can't wait. Early scoop.
Yeah.
What's the storyline?
Yeah. So Lucy, I'm so glad you're asking, because now as I'm in the midst of my edit, the first draft was 83,000 words. It's been quite a journey to get here. But in the midst of my edits, like I'm really reading it, like, as a reader, and I'm like, oh, this is good. Like, I can't wait to share it. So yes. So what I'll say is that, long story short, it's very much a Black identity journey. It's the coming of age tale of a Black American millennial who has grown up with a very Western sense of Black identity, learning what it means to be Black through our white, if you will, history books, as well as through media. So whether that is what we see on BET or NBC, right? And to that point, what we learn of Africa is often told through the same lens. And so it's about dispelling those myths, but then also understanding which of them are, happens to be true, but then also realizing that you get to discern your truth for yourself above all else. And I definitely want to give a big, big shout out to my Salem sister, Rakaya Fall, for who was the bride in this story. So without her getting married in Senegal, the novel is about my first and maybe second trip to Senegal. But if it weren't for her getting married that first trip and giving or extending that invitation for me, and there was also another Salem sister, Olivia Lewis, class 2009, we went. And so if it weren't for my Salem sisters, this book could not have happened. So I definitely, I text her all the time, and I just tell her, like, girl, like, thank you just for letting me tell your story. Because quite frankly, there's it's not very much that has been redacted. Not very much has been changed, even though it is written in a fiction format versus a memoir format. Lucy, there's just certain things I'm not quite ready to fess up to. But again, it's very much a women's fiction story, and it's very much a strong heroine. There's a lot of character development. You're going to hate her at the beginning of the book, but by the middle of it, you'll be rooting for her, and by the end of it, like, you'll love her. So that's the story. And the working title is Fairy Tales. The working title is Fairy Tales.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to actually bring that up right now, because how do you spell fairy?
Ferry.
Fairy tales. I love that, because I think fairy tales are recollection or something, isn't it? And
yes,
I love the thought of spelling fairy, which makes me want to read the book to find out what does she mean by fairy tales that way. So very, very clever title. I love that already. Do you have a potential publication date? I'm not trying to put any pressure on you, but what's your goal?
No, Yeah, so the goal is to have a manuscript ready for agents. We're probably looking at late winter. And so,
Good.
if all goes well and, the ancestors continue to bless my path, this could be out next summer.
I can't wait. And we might have somebody that's listening to this right now, when it
Yes.
plays, that might have a key that helps unlock some of those publishers. You just never know. So you're putting a dream out there, which I think is another piece that's important for everybody. I love that.
Yes, the power of manifesting. And so again, that's why I just want to encourage our current students just to find out what that passion is, to stick with it, and then just find a way to monetize it. That's it.
Okay, I love that. Well, speaking of our students, let's go to Salem Academy and your kind of experience there. Okay, and that's how we'll end this. We'll go there for you. So just one word, and I've done this in all of the interviews, so I'm just going to ask you to just come up with one word, like a rapid fire here. Okay, what was your favorite course at Salem Academy?
Spanish with Senor Vincini. Have to.
Okay, I love that. Spanish. Favorite faculty member that had the biggest impact on you? Is that fair to ask you? Is there one?
Of course it is. Miss Barbara Walla.
Okay, thank you. Just your smile is going to warm anybody who knows her. And
Yeah,
I love that.
That's Miss Walla.
All right. So, and what was your favorite tradition of all the traditions? What was your favorite?
I hesitate because I wouldn't say it was my favorite at the time, but in hindsight, I love a good love feast. Like I love anytime there's a love feast, I'm all for it. Yes, I love a good love feast.
Okay, Moravian love feast. I just love that.
Yes.
And then lastly, and you've mentioned a couple here, but I don't know. I know you were in clubs, but I'm just going to ask, what was your either favorite club or your favorite sport or one of each, whatever?
Okay, definitely big shout out to my tennis team. If I wanted to, I would reach for my racket and grab it. So big shout out to my tennis team. It's Sally Ingram, to all my Salem College as well as Academy sisters, in case you know her, was inducted to the Sports Hall of Fame, I think this past summer or whatever. But she was the coach. And then also definitely want to give a big shout out to my Academe girls as well as to my Spanish club girls. What's up?
Okay, I love that. Thank you. Outstanding. All right, so. I asked this question too, and this one, I can't wait to hear your answer, because every time I ask somebody, college or academy, tell me about Salem, they just start smiling. It's like big transformation, and it came over you too. It really did. I could see your face change when I said, let's go to the academy. There has to be a secret sauce, and I don't know of a better way to ask that word, but what was your experience at the academy that caused you to love it and light up like that? What was the secret sauce that makes your heart warm about the academy?
I'm teetering between, and I feel like there's probably not a word in the English language, is something like accountability / structure / platform. So this idea that if you wanted to do something, so whether it's learn another language or be an artist, there was a pathway for you to do that. But if you're going to do that, they were going to make sure that you were the best at it. You know what I'm saying? Like they were going to hold you accountable for your Spanish grades. If you were an artist, they were going to make sure that you were competing at a state level. There was that sort of structure there. And I think, especially for young girls, we need that sense of that platform, if you will. I think it's particularly critical of women in their development at that age. And then the other is just simply put sisterhood. Just the fact that I, never had to walk into the room and be like, okay, am I the prettiest here today? Or walk into the lunchroom and be like, well, where do I sit? To this day, I actually was just messaging on Instagram one of my Korean girlfriends I graduated with. Shout out to Christine Park. And I say that because even though I pride myself on being a very Black girl, I would still sit at the table with the Korean girls. And so, my Korean's still pretty on point. Annyeonghaseyo to all my anis, all my Salem Korean sisters out there. And again, it just provided just a space for us all to just be whoever we are. And I'm just so grateful that we weren't discouraged from looking like ourselves, and that we were able to be ourselves, and they just wanted us to be the best form of ourselves.
Wow, what a compliment. Really, what a compliment. And how would you say to take that even one step a little bit further, if that's even possible. You know, how did going to an all girls high school really impact your life? And is that still important today for certain girls, women, whatever you think to
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah, I would say it was without a doubt one of the top two, if you know, if not three, best decisions I ever made in my life. And much of it comes from when I look around at, and I'm trying to do better about not saying disparaging, not talking down about people, but what I'll say is that I'm very impressed with the outcomes of Salem women as compared, as proportionally as compared to some of the women who did not go to institutions that were structured as such. So when I look around and I see that we're lawyers and doctors and curing cancer and winning awards and getting our PhDs and, and doing all these things. And don't get me wrong, some of us do have families. Shout out to my girl, comes to mind, Kate Todd. We played tennis together, married a naval officer, and but at the same time, she has these beautiful children, but she also just started her own photography business. Right. So it's like, I love that Salem women somehow have been able to find a balance. And so we also always look really good. So shout out to my girl, Katie Hall, at the college. Whenever I see Katie, she's always fly. I'm always fly. One of my coworkers, Graydon Pleasance, his daughter Virginia, went to the academy, and she's up in the city, as an attorney. And every time I see Graydon, I'm always like, "How is Virginia?" Graydon's always like, "She's great," and then I'm like, "It's because she went to the academy." I mean, it's just what we academy girls do. We're just great. We're enjoying life. And there's also just not this pressure to be anything. Like when we talk about, we're never looking at each other like, why aren't we married? Like we should have, we're not upholding ourselves to these same societal markers that women, especially in the South, often will adhere to. And so I'm grateful that we are this sort of modern woman, but again, have a sense of balance. So don't get me wrong, if you come over, I will have a meal made for you. But by the time you get here, my house will be clean. I'll be in a dress again, and I'll be, sitting there with a glass of wine, like watching you eat, because that's Salem women. We somehow find a way to make it look like we have it all together, even though my apartment might have been a wreck right before you got here, right? And so again, it's this idea that we know that we are real women, but we understand the best women that we can be, and just want to do that.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. What a compliment, honestly, to 250 years of educating women, isn't it? I just love that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, knowing what you now know and being the wise person that you clearly are, put yourself back and think of yourself as a 14 or 15-year-old girl. Okay.
Whew.
What, now knowing what you know, what would you like to tell yourself? And what would you tell the students today, knowing what you know now about their journey, their experience, how to maximize whatever it is that's on your mind?
It's just interesting you ask this question, Lucy, because this is also a bit of the moral of my novel. And which is that like you already have everything that you need. So like when I look back, and if I could like talk to younger Bria, I'd be like, girl, like you got it. Like I know it doesn't seem like it, but like you have everything that you need. Just utilize these tools and resources and maximize them. And so that's exactly what I try to do with my job, right? It's like you as the entrepreneur out here, solopreneur, womanpreneur, whatever you might be, you have it, right? Like it's just a matter of just making sure that you use the resources around you to amplify whatever that it is. And so for the girls at Salem, the fact that they're there, the fact that they have made that asserted choice, because they don't have to be there. There are other places that they can go to that cost less money, for example, right? So the fact that they've already made that choice, they understand the value that they have to offer this world. And if they just keep that same mentality and they never let anybody dim their light, chef's kiss, they'll be all right.
Yes, ma'am. And I love that thought of never letting anybody else dim your light. You're a poet. It reminds me of Invictus. I'm the master of my fate and the captain of my soul. I think of that all the time. And that's exactly what you just said with a lot more aplomb than I did. So well done. All right.
Thank you, Lucy.
We're at the end of our journey. It's time to bring this home. I would love to talk to you all day long, but Clearly, there's not enough time in the day, and you may have a party tonight. I don't know. Anyway,
I do.
okay, dear. So you have to be that princess of party. But one last serious thing before you get to go do that. Time to bring us home. What would you like to leave folks with? What's your kind of final words of wisdom for this interview today? What's the most important takeaway you'd love for people to remember about our discussion?
I really especially want the parents who have girls who are in middle school, elementary school, or even still in high school. It's never too late to transfer. Just to let them know the value that sending their daughter in particular to the academy has. I know that there are other choices in education, again, that might be closer to your house, or, especially in this age of virtual, there you have a world, literally a world of choices, right? And understanding that the environment, the curriculum, the rigor, the accountability, the extracurriculars, all of those things are really what's going to nourish and carry your daughter into the future and into being her best self. I always tell my parents the best gift that I can give them is me not asking for anything of them. And it's this idea of they gave me enough that I can be independent. Like they between Salem and St. John's and Wake and the upbringing in my family, they have given me everything that I needed to succeed. And Salem is often, in my opinion, that final piece, that icing on a cake, because that's what Salem does, is they cut diamonds, if you will. Just bring your carbon to the diamond mine, and we will come out of it with a beautiful gem on the backside.
I have to say, I usually say, drop the mic. That's it. You get the final word. But I have to reflect just 1 second more on cutting diamonds. That's actually one of the coolest taglines. You are a marketer at heart and a poet.
I am.
The thought of Salem Academy cutting diamonds. What a beautiful vision to end on. Thank you, really. And I think they certainly did with you. That's all I got to say.
And what I want to say to Salem's credit is the fact that you can only cut diamonds with diamonds. Like the surfaces have to be equally hard, right? And so that's what Salem brings. That's what I was talking about, that rigor, that structure, that accountability, is you have to bring those two things together in order for that beautiful, shiny diamond to be created.
Thank you. Really, thank you. I mean, really, on behalf of all of the Salem, the whole community, Academy, college, alums, everybody, everywhere. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for sharing your story today. And we really look forward to what you bring to the 250th anniversary and celebration. And on a personal note, I look forward to getting to know you better and working with you as we move all of that forward. You make us proud. Thank you. Really, thank you. And
You're all of our, thank you, Lucy.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's just my pleasure. No joke. So on behalf of all of us, thank you. And to all of the viewers, I really look forward to seeing you yet again in 2 more weeks with another episode of Salem Voices. But I know you've really loved this one. Until then, Abrea is going to join me with a quick ending. We're going to do a little fist bump and say Salem strong.
Salem strong.